What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the BizDad Podcast. Today, I am stoked to chat with another dadpreneur, and that's the name of your podcast, right? Dadpreneur. I'm really looking forward to chatting with Fyfe Barraclough. I said that right?
Yep.
Yes. All right. I wrote it down correctly to help me out a little bit. So, but really stoked to kind of chat with you a little bit, get to know you a little bit. We were introduced by a previous guest and really looking forward to chatting with somebody who's passionate about being a dad and an entrepreneur. So if you can, Fyfe, go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell us about your family and tell us about your business.
Yeah. So I'm Fyfe. I'm based up in Vancouver here. And we have a 2.5, almost 3-year-old daughter named Maisie. Having a ton of fun with her right now at this age. Lots of stories, almost like starting to get some like fabricated stories where we're like checking in on like, is that true or not? So having lots of fun with her. And I work with dadpreneurs often. So I'm working as a coach and working with a lot of guys in trades, actually helping them in their business, kind of stop being the bottleneck in the business, so that they can have a more sellable, scalable business, but also spend more time and be more present at home. So helping them build mental fitness so they can be more present at home, even if the business is a little chaotic, and helping them systemize that and structure the business and life in a way that really supports what success looks like for them. And try and get outside and keep myself healthy when I can. And that's been super important as well.
Yeah, when it's not 4 degrees in the winter for you, or negative 40 degrees in the winter for you. Yeah.
Welcome to the BizDad Podcast, where we dive into the melding of fathership and entrepreneurship with your host, the original BizDad himself, Adam Labar. Adam is a Christian, a former Air Force officer, a dad to 3 amazing kids, a coach, a real estate investor, and a business owner. On this podcast, he'll explore the unique journeys of amazing dads who are striving for greatness in both business and family. So whether you're a dad who is an aspiring entrepreneur, a seasoned business owner, or simply a man striving to be a better dad, get ready as the BizDad brings you conversations to inspire, challenge, and equip you to be a better dad and entrepreneur. And now, here's Adam.
So before I go into, I'm definitely looking forward to chatting a little bit about the coaching side and the dad side and how you've been passionate about that. But let's back up a little bit. I want to know a little bit about your background, what it was like for you growing up. Tell me a little bit about your childhood, your parents, especially your dad. Kind of what sort of relationship did you have with your dad, or do you still have with your dad, and all of that? Let me hear a little bit about your background.
Yeah. So I've been very, very fortunate in the relationship I have with my parents. We're still extremely close. Grew up, I feel in some ways almost guilty with the luck that I've had and how I was raised. I know I hear a lot of stories and meet a lot of guys and work with a lot of guys where it's been challenging. They've had trauma. They've had a lot of hardship. So for me, very, very different. And I really try and take that into what I can share and give back to other guys, but also just carry forward, into our family and my daughter. So got 2 younger brothers. I'm the eldest of 3. So it was definitely like a busy household, lots of sports. But there was a big enough age gap that there wasn't too much fighting. I think I was old enough that there wasn't too much of that. But my very active, engaged parents, like they made a decision when I was before we were born, I think, that there would be no TV in the house. So we grew up without TV, in part just because, like, I think my dad said, he's like, he gets so distracted by it that he wouldn't be as engaged. So that was just a decision they had, just like no TV.
Same reason we don't have video games in my house.
Yeah. So lots of sports, lots of, fun outside. My mom was a stay-at-home mom, so she really like kept us in check and kept us busy and really held, that's a full-time job in and of itself. So lots of her involvement in how we were raised and setting boundaries and stuff like that. My dad worked full-time. He was wouldn't see him in the morning, would get home probably 6, 5:36. But when he was home, he was present.
Nice.
And I actually was able to chat with him. I chat with him regularly, but we were up skiing one day. I had a day with him skiing, and I was asking him just kind of how he set that up and like how he thought about it. And he would work a tiny bit later, often at the office, to know that he could just be present when he got home. So yeah, very, very lucky. And you can definitely ask more questions and I can like share more about some of that, but still very close. Lots of family dinners every week. My dad initially got me into coaching, so there's a lot of connection there, and we'll chat about business and challenges. And I've learned a lot about leadership through him and how to engage in business as well. So he's definitely been like mentor, also like very supportive. But I'll lean on him and my mom in challenging times still.
Very cool. What did your dad do for a living that he was able to get home at 5 o'clock, 5:30 and still kind of engage with you guys?
He started out as an engineer, did his MBA, but he worked as like a general manager and then moved into people and culture. So HR leader at a computer chip manufacturing company. So he actually traveled a lot. That was another thing that I chatted with him about, was he'd be gone for like a week a month sometimes or more, 2 weeks a month here and there. So there's a lot of travel in there too. So wasn't as present in some of those early days. So it's been really interesting and cool for him to have a different side of that with my daughter. Like just more time. They take my daughter on Fridays and it's just like full on grandparent day for her. So I think grandparents, from what I've seen anyways, like they have a different appreciation and ability to connect and be present because just of like the setup that they have. They don't have all the other demands on their time at this and the way that they can engage. For sure.
You mentioned that your dad, when he was home, he was present with you, and like when he was home, he was there. He was with you. Have you talked to him at all, or what is your kind of take on how he was able to just kind of step away from the putting everything from work away to be able to fully be engaged and present with you guys?
So I work from home, and I know that's been a challenge for me and for other guys, is that context switching, because you're at home and then you like step and you're like, you have to immediately switch. Yeah. And the office that he went to was maybe like half an hour away if there was no traffic, 40 minutes. And I was like, oh, that's kind of annoying. Like, isn't that annoying that you would have had to commute and all that kind of stuff? He's like, no, actually it was kind of nice. Like that was that decompression time after you leave the office to kind of like switch gears, process, kind of make notes on whatever you have to do tomorrow, to actually like let go of the day and make sense of it so you can actually be present when you step in the door. And I thought that was interesting because I always just assumed that was kind of a waste of time. But for him, it was like that warm up for a workout. Like you have that lead up time to kind of get yourself in gear for work and to come home. And I have to say, like, we take our daughter to daycare and I usually do pick up and drop off. And that's actually helped me bookend my day at the start and the finish. It's only a 15-minute drive, but kind of like, that's the start of my day. When I'm driving after dropping her off, I have that like 10 minutes to like get into the flow. And then same thing. I'm not like, because I find like the days that my wife will do pick up at the end of the day, I'll be working and then they come in the door and I'm kind of like all over the place, scattered. Yeah, it's tough. I mean, like I told you that before we started recording, I work from home, I homeschool, I've got all going on, so they're always here. And my wife, she's still in the military, but she's retiring later this year, and she was on leave all last week, and she was home and she was trying to get some stuff done. She's like, I don't know how you work. And I said, I need an office somewhere else. Like like it is sometimes very, very difficult to have that happen when they're all here all the time. My 2-year-old doesn't know any difference, so she'll just grab the handle and open the door and come on in. So I've got to lock the door if I want a semi-distraction free environment. So that's it's tough. So how have you kind of personally set your schedule up to be able to make that mental switch? Obviously, you mentioned the driving to and from daycare, but there's still so much that's on the brain of an entrepreneur, somebody who's helping people solve problems and all of that. How have you kind of made your personal mental switch happen? Yeah. So that's been part of it, just like being out of the house. So even if I'm not the one doing pickup or drop off, I'll usually try and go for a quick walk. Again, just like signal for myself and my body. It's like it's either off time or on time. I think it was during COVID, actually. We weren't going out of the house. We were living in a different area. My daughter wasn't born yet, but that like work-life transition, I actually created a bit of like a habit for myself where like I'd clock out at 5:30 or something like that. And I would do, sometimes it would be a shower. Sometimes it would be like an actual like mini guided meditation that I made for myself to kind of like close out the day, take my notes, and actually mentally transition myself so I could be present. So I wasn't just stepping up from my chair and be like in the kitchen with like so many things on my mind, but actually creating a bit of a habit to help myself do that. So that's been big, but I generally find it's got to be a physical thing, to like a physical key, like a walk, just a quick cold shower, couple push-ups, or like I've been practicing handstands. It's like little things like that can help kind of like force me to be really present, and I can't think about anything else. And then it allows me to kind of switch gears.
Very cool. So how did you kind of, I'll say stumble across, but how did you get into the coaching side? You mentioned your dad kind of helped get you on that track. How did he become the impetus for that? And what was your desire to kind of chase down that path?
Yeah. So as he was getting closer to retirement and he was in people and culture, he started to move it more into coaching, executive coaching, because he was doing that a lot within the organization that he was in. And he went through a coaching certification program. I had just done a couple of years of running a painting franchise and knew that I didn't want to do that full time and wasn't sure what my next step was. And he said, "You might like this coaching thing." I enjoyed coaching my painters and growing the team and that side of operating the business. And I almost didn't, because I'm like, what do you know? I was in my 20s. Dad, like, I don't know. Like, I know you know me, but like, I'll do my own thing. But I was like, oh, whatever. Like, it's a weekend course. Yeah. And sure enough, he was right, as dads often are. Not that we want to admit it. But yeah, it was one of those things where I did this course. I think I was one of 4 guys out of 25, and I was the youngest person in the room by far. There's a lot of women, like executive level women. So I felt a little out of place, but it was one of those things where like, as we got into the work, it felt like I came home. I was like, wow, this is cool. Like I could do this for a job. Yeah, sign me up. And that was, probably close to 10 years ago. I went through that. And since then I've just chipped away at it. It was a part-time for a while. On the side, I'd have a couple of clients, and a lot of the roles I had were very kind of coaching focused. And then it wasn't until about 4 or 5 years ago, I went full-time in the coaching.
Very cool.
Around the time that I found the mental fitness side of it too. Okay.
That's really awesome. Since you've been doing this, what's been kind of your drive to? I mean, you said you started doing it part-time. I'm assuming you're doing it full-time now. So, or I don't have to assume, you said you're doing it full-time now. So how did you kind of transition that from part-time to full-time? And what was really the passion inside of you that said, no, like this is like, it's one thing to go through the training. It's another thing to start doing it. It's another thing to only do that. So how did that path work for you?
So I think I knew I always wanted to do coaching full time, whether that was internally at a company or for myself. But because I had run the painting business and I actually had an HVAC cleaning franchise as well in between all that I owned with a business partner, and we ran that remotely. We had a gym in place. So there was about 7 years there where we had that running. I enjoyed that kind of coaching aspect, trying to grow that business and do that. So long story short, like that was happening. I was also working in a startup in a coaching role. COVID hit. They let some people go. I was not one of them. So I was I got like a bunch of extra work and was close to hitting burnout. And then our GM in that business needed to transition. So we had to hire somebody new, which was really hard to do because everybody was there was very uncertain times. So I hit burnout pretty quick there, just with like the amount of workload. And it was around that time that I had an opportunity to go through this mental fitness coaching 7 weeks as an offer because I was an existing certified coach. Almost said no because I was burnt out and fried. I was like, I shouldn't take anything else on, but it was grant, so it was free for me. So I ended up doing it, and it helped create some space for me mentally to deal with all the stuff I was dealing with. And on the back end of that 7 weeks, I kind of made the decision that I need to get myself out of burnout enough so that I can make a proper decision whether I want to leave the company I was with and go coaching full time. I didn't want to do that out of scarcity and like survival mode. I was like, I want to prove to myself I can get through this stage of burnout and then make a decision from like a really grounded place. But that 7 weeks really set me up and gave me a lot of bandwidth. And then I was able to take a bit of time off as well, and then made the decision then that I wanted to go full time into coaching. And at that time, because I was so maxed out from trying to hire through the business and working at that startup, I didn't have any coaching clients on the side. So I just burned the ships. I was like, I'm not going to create the capacity to do some part-time and like ease my way into it. So I just jumped in 2 feet first. So
awesome. Now you mentioned something that I want to kind of dig into a little bit more. You said that you wanted to prove to yourself that you can get out of the burnout first. Like, how did that, a lot of times when people get that burnout, they just shut down completely. They're like, I don't see an end to this, and they just shut down. Others will be in a perpetual state of burnout. So how did you kind of start to look at the burnout? How did you start to look at the burnout that led you to say, you know what, I can work through this and get to the end of it? And how did you kind of create a plan to get through that burnout?
That's a great question. So I think there was a couple variables that were shifting enough to know that some capacity was going to open up. So with the startup I was with, that initial, maybe say like 6 months right after COVID hit, there was a lot of changes in the business. So the business was helping physios with their marketing. So physios were impacted really heavily because they couldn't have people in their business. So we were transitioning what we were helping them offer. So our business had to completely reshift our offer to the physios. The physios and we were coaching the physios to change their offer to do more virtual stuff. So there was just a lot of chaos in those first 6 months.
What is a physio? Your side?
Sorry, physical therapist.
Ah, okay.
We call them physios up here. And I think that initial wave of chaos, I could see a bit of a slowdown to it. Not a lot. Like I still had a ton of clients that I was working with, and still a lot of challenges, but there was enough of stability established by that point that I knew there wasn't going to be another massive wave of chaos. And at that time, we had also brought in a new GM for the business that I owned. So we had a bit more stability there. So I had created some structure and stability in both, or that had happened. And the mental fitness and me just focusing on what I need to do to like build up that battery pack again was key. I took a week off too, where I just dropped out and like did a bunch of journaling, some meditating, and hanging out with my wife, and that helped bring a lot more clarity to that was the time that I wanted to leave. And I actually didn't leave until the following year. So I think I gave my notice in October, said I'll help transition myself out. And the company was, grateful. There was left on good terms, but I didn't like leave him in a spot 'cause I had a pretty high client load at that point.
So it sounds like mental fitness and mental health is one of those things that have been a pillar for you. When did that kind of start becoming a focus of yours?
So the mental fitness became a more apparent tool for me when I went through that program. Mm-hmm. But I've always been pretty fascinated with psychology and did a psych minor. So just like how we work, being balanced. I think my parents actually set a really good example of having good habits that maintain a lot of those things proactively. They're both still really fit and active. And I think that's a huge part of mental health as well. So having that outlet. And I don't know if there was ever like a pivotal time where I was like, oh, that's going to be a focus for me. It was just, I was always naturally curious about balance, making sure I'm getting what I need to keep my cup full. And I went through kind of 2 pretty good bouts of what I'll call burnout. And there's like definitely like more severe people with burnout, but it was enough that at one point my brother looked at me and was like, "You look like a ghost of a man." I was like, "Oh, that cuts." Yeah. But you're not wrong. And I lose weight when I'm stressed. So like that was obvious for other people noticed, and my wife noticed too, like when I was going through those. So it was always important, but it's one of those things, and I see it with clients too, where it is such a slow creep. Like something else gets added. It's like death by 1,000 cuts. And then all of a sudden you wake up and you're like, what is going on? Like, why am I so fatigued or tired? Or like, I responded so emotionally to that thing that I would normally not have. So it's always been a focus. Yet I still, I found myself in that trap a couple times within those, 5 years probably.
Well, now you're kind of helping other people who may be seeing themselves in that trap. What's your experience? Excuse me. What has your experience been like, kind of walking folks through something that you already were experiencing and kind of helping them get through some things to find that balance and understand both the business and family side of it?
I think a lot of them don't even know that they're in burnout. Mm-hmm. Like I've had a surprising number of conversations with somebody that I've just met or like a potential client. They're telling me all this stuff and I'm like, "Are you burnt out?" And they're like, "Oh, yeah, maybe." So I think sometimes there's a denial where we don't want to admit it because that might mean I have to take time off, or like that could impact the business even more if I am in burnout. So sometimes it's just like an awareness, because when you're so fried, it's sometimes hard to see, even though other people might see it very clearly. Yeah. And I mean, the impact's everywhere, like health, family. I think a lot of it for me is presence. So when I was in those states, I'm not engaged, especially like if I think of family dinners or something like that, like the bandwidth to engage and like go talk to people. It's like more like I'm just sitting on the couch, just kind of like a bit of a zombie. Yeah. So it shows up everywhere. And I don't know, like what have you noticed with burnout? And how
that it feels like a constant state of it all the time. Yes, that's because I went from kind of buying apartments while being in the military, so I would be working my military job of 10 hours a day, 12 hours a day, to then coming home, feeding the kids, putting them to sleep, staying awake to buy apartment buildings, analyze, answer questions, figure stuff out, to then go to sleep and wake up and do it all over again, and it was a mess. So, it was one of those where I realized that my kids were the ones sacrificing, that I was like, no, like that's not, I've wanted to be a dad for way too long to be ruining my kids by never being here and not being who I needed to be for them. So I had to make some adjustments there. So, I mean, even when I'm coaching dads on stuff or, having conversations with business owners about what they're doing in the business, like it's so hard from inside of where they're at to see what's actually happening or where the light is, So it took me a while, like some conversations with my wife. It makes a huge difference in just understanding her perspective, because the way she sees the world is so much different than the way I see the world. I see the world, I feel like I'm looking at the Matrix. It's all ones and zeros, and that's it. Everything's so analytical and logical. And then she brings in this flowery emotion side that I'm not used to looking at and going, oh man, where am I missing the boat on all of this? Like I'm completely, sometimes you're talking to somebody and it's like, oh yeah, but I spent the 47 minutes and 22 seconds that they're supposed to have with me doing that. And it's like, no. Like you're looking at this all wrong, and it's, and I only know that because of where I was at. So, it's really difficult. So, go ahead.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that's been eye-opening for me, but also for clients too that have seen it, is often it is somebody else that sees it for you.
Yeah.
Like my brother called it out for me. My wife called it out to you. Like she noticed it as soon as I had started addressing it. It's like, your zestiness is back. Like Fyfe is back. And I remember a client telling me his wife said to him, I want the old you back. And again, that was one of those like knife in the heart, like, moments. But often because it's such a slow thing for us and we're just in it. And when you're in burnout, it's hard to see because they're just like, you're in survival mode, that often takes somebody else mirroring it or like calling it out.
No, but it's one thing to have it called out. It's another thing to actually receive it and work from it. How have you what type of personality or what type of things have you noticed need to be said to the person for them to actually go, all right, because it's on their own terms, right? None of us can force somebody to change or see it if they don't want to, So how have you been able to kind of see, and what have been the kind of the impetuses for most folks to be able to, I actually see where I need a change here?
I mean, you're spot on that they have to actually receive it. So some people, there might be an unwillingness. In terms of like the clients that I'm working with, if they're open to talking to me, they're already looking for something. They know, like they're at a point where the decision's been made that they need to make a change. And I think a lot of the time it's either, it sucks, but it's like, it's a health scare, like a panic attack, or like something pretty major where they're like, wow, I can't continue. Like this is not sustainable. Or some other, like maybe it's not a panic attack, but something like that really triggers an eye-opening moment. Or it probably is like relationship stuff at home. Like wife says something, or like there's more, the relationship's not going as well. And that's an eye-opening thing. It's like, I can't lose this, or like there's something different, something needs to change. And I think it's usually something on the personal side that triggers it. I don't think it's usually something in the business that triggers it. I'm just thinking through any examples, but I think it's normally on that personal side that like, that's the eye-opening thing. And then like, okay, got to make a change.
I think that's where, because a lot of men, it's kind of programmed in us to be the provider, to be the leader, to go and chase all of those things. So, and part of the way that A, society, and B, ourselves, as we're kind of growing up in this world, is the way that I can be the leader and the provider is to, build this business, to focus on that, to do all these things. But then we forget about what it means to be the leader and provider inside of the house. So I think that's why the personal side tends to be the thing that comes and slaps you in the face, and it's like on my coaching side, I try to talk to folks about my personal it goes, my God, my wife, my kids, right? And then everything else is below it. And if any of those are out of whack, if they're in the wrong order, if I put the business above any one of those, it tends to screw up the rest of them. So if we can, coordinate that to where you and your wife are on the same page and you guys are fighting together inside the house and outside the house, being a unified front, fighting, not like actually fighting with each other type of thing. But then you end up in a much better spot, which I think why the personal side takes such a hit is because we're so focused on trying to grow this thing or build this thing or, lead this team. And then we come home and it's still on our brain and we're fighting this, and it becomes a mess and you never actually deal with what the problem is. And that's where I think the benefit of having somebody like you or me to be able to like, hey, we've done this. We've had those sacrifices. We understand what it's like. It hurts. Let's work through it and understand how we can get to the bottom of it. It's an exhausting time for everybody involved, but again, what's the point of having $100 million business if you lose your family in the process? Like, or
Yeah.
process, as you would say. It's, I'd so much rather keep that last name alive and thriving than watch it all just kind of fall apart. So you've been a dad for 3 years. You've been with your wife for a while. So what kind of thoughts have you had now? Like, what does legacy mean to you as you're kind of growing this out and saying, hey, like, I'm talking to all these dads, I'm seeing what they're doing, these business leaders, and seeing what they're doing and trying to help them through this. What am I going to be doing with my daughter? It was Maisie, right? What am I going to be doing with my daughter? What am I showing her? What have your conversations been with yourself, your journaling, as well as with your wife, as how you guys are going to be kind of growing this new human being in the world?
Yeah, as in terms of like how do I want to contribute to Maisie, or like the principles or kind of pillars, or
we could take it a bunch of different directions, but I think in general, more like how am I going to be showing up as a dad? How are we going to be showing up as a couple to provide the best example possible?
Yeah. So I think this is why I love these conversations, and I love talking to other guys, because it's stuff that you don't get to see. Like, our only exposure is our parents, and that's our sample size, really.
Yep.
I was fortunate to see how my parents did it, and I thought they did it really well. They've been together, I think since they was like 16 or 17, they've met.
Wow.
Almost, that seems super weird to me that they met that early and they're still together, but they're super close. But I saw a lot of, like, if we were to take the angle of talking about how Andrew and I, my wife and I, connect and what we're modeling, that level of communication, addressing and repairing things, being proactive in how we're communicating. We have a weekly family meeting. Maisie doesn't really watch us do that because we do that after she's down. But that weekly family meeting is a really great proactive way for us to, like, check in, stay organized, acknowledge each other, look at what's working, what's not working, what do we need to tweak. One of the prompts is, what are we doing well with Maisie? What can we do better? And just that structure alone, I think, models something for Maisie, whether or not she sees that yet. So kind of like a meta level thing. But like, a big part of it has been, just the level of communication and how we address things as a couple, I think, is really, really important. And I saw my parents do a really good job of that. I think that I never saw fighting. I wouldn't call it fighting. And we, like, Andrew and I, it's almost weird. I've had this conversation with Andrea and like one other group of friends. Like, we don't really fight. Like conflict is not, I can't really think of a major conflict that we've had. And some people might take that as, oh, you're not sharing or going deep enough or whatever with people. And I don't think that's the case. I think that we've both done personal work and have a lot of trust that we can bring stuff forward as soon as it's like bubbling up. And I think the coach it. So Andrew's gone through the mental fitness stuff too. Like, we have this language to be able to address stuff in a more proactive way that's not threatening. So like, being able to say, like, hey, are you in saboteur mode? Like, that self-sabotage, you're in like that negative state, instead of being like, hey, you're just being really grumpy. Like, we have this, like, this out, or like this tool to like engage with the situation in a way that serves us both. And I would say, like, a lot of the stuff I've learned in coaching, I apply in the family setting, about like how to engage with challenges, how to be more patient. Mental fitness has helped with that as well. So, I mean, there's way more here, but I think that maybe helps answer some of the question around the legacy thing, especially on like the relationship side.
I really like that you said that you have that shared language of, the saboteur mode, right? Where you're not calling the person out, right? You're calling the activity out, because the activity is the problem, not the person, right? we can adjust the activities that we're doing. We can adjust the things we're thinking about, but we're still us, right? So let's not, go after the person for sure. And that's it. I didn't think about it that way, but I almost associate that to, we've got our like family core values on the wall, and we can say, hey, that doesn't meet our core values that we as a family created, right? So I'm not saying, hey, you're failing miserably at this. It's like, hey, we created that, or do you think we're fulfilling what we decided as a family means the most to us? If you can have the ability, like that shared language model, to kind of chase things down and be able to communicate with each other to where you're not calling each other out and like, oh, well, you're acting stupid today, and it's like, oh, whoa, like that's not exactly going to be helpful for you, but I really like that. Now, I want to go back to the family meeting though. You mentioned the family meeting and that, like, one of the prompts, which leads me to ask, what are more of the prompts? Like, when you sit down and have a family meeting, one of the prompts is, what are we doing well for Maisie? What are some more of the prompts that folks may want to take or model in their own family meetings?
So it's kind of dorky, but it's a spreadsheet, and there's just like a set bunch of prompts, and then each week we just kind of fill it out. It takes us about 30 minutes, but it starts with wins. So like, what's been a win for Andrea or me? Just acknowledging what's going well. What's been a win or a gain that we've seen with Maisie? So we're actually logging, like, oh, she like said her first word, or
nice, she
said this hilarious thing. So like, we're kind of tracking some of that and being present to the changes that are happening so quickly, but just like tracking some of that. Got acknowledgements after that. So like, what's something specific I've done or Andrea's done that I want to acknowledge her for? So want to acknowledge you for, it might be something, often it repeats, it's like, thank you so much for doing this, and like how you show up. It's like, I do a lot of the daycare drop-offs. I get acknowledged for that, but like, just like actively looking for things to acknowledge that we don't normally, and creating space for that. And that's been I think it's a really powerful exercise, because it's easy to say thank you for something. It's, oh, thanks for doing that, or thanks for, but it's like, it's one thing to really acknowledge and be like, hey, I really appreciate it when you do X, because that means this for me. And it opens a door for appreciation for hidden things. And it's because it's been a forced prompt, it's been interesting, because sometimes I won't know what to say and I'll just like sit on it, and then you get creative, and then you sometimes see something you wouldn't have seen before that you want to acknowledge or see. So that's been really interesting. And then from there, it goes a little bit more like, insights. So any insights from the week, personal learnings. It's like, oh, like when I'm hungry, like I need food. Let's not talk about something like organize it, like just little things like that. You get little tidbits that help you out in the future. Stuck points and challenges. What do you want to change? Which is kind of the same thing. How are we doing in our communication together? And then it's a little bit more tactical, like who's doing pickup and drop-offs, meal prep, just like organizational side of things. And if there's any like to-dos, like if I have to do something or she has to do something, we'll just kind of make note of that and loosely have some accountability to follow up on it next week.
How long have you guys been holding these family meetings like that?
I think we started them probably a year and a half. We haven't been good the last month or so, but probably a good like year and a half, close to 2 years. And I think it was when Andrea left, went back to work. So after mat leave, it was one of those, we got to be more structured with some of this stuff. And it took a little bit to ingrain the habit and get her on board. So if you're a guy listening, like make sure everybody's on board before you start, and just like, we're doing the system. But it's been really helpful.
Again, looking at the life as ones and zeros versus, like there's a lot more on the other side. So now, how are you planning on, or have you guys discussed, right now you do it when Maisie goes to sleep, but are you planning to include her in these family meetings? And how have you guys kind of, or how do you venture seeing yourselves include her in those, if that is the choice?
Yeah, definitely at some point want to include her, and it might become, I think I still want to have one with just Andrea and I, but having one that's a lot like this with Maisie, because one, it's a way of connecting and being a little bit more reflective each week. Because I think, especially as she's only 3, but I know that it only goes faster and faster. There's more activities, things go fast.
Very true.
So in a way, it's a way to slow down and reflect and be like, oh, what was cool this week?
Mm-hmm.
What's good? What's bad? More intentional with that. So I definitely want to have her included. And again, it's like a way of modeling what's been working for us, Andrew and I, setting a bit of an example of one tool that might work for Maisie down the road as well.
Very cool. Are you guys planning on having more kids or just the one?
Yeah, I think more kids for sure.
Yeah, 47 if you can. Just keep on having them, as many as you possible. No, I wish we would have had 10. Like it's just one of those that God decided we were going to wait 4 years in between each kid, so it was like a never-ending process. But as you have more and more kids, it does become a little bit more difficult. But man, oh man, does it become more fun. Like there's just so much enjoyment in watching the kids interact. And like my sister, I remember when she was having her second kid, which is a few years before I had before she had her second kid, like right when I was getting married. And she was like, right when you think that you just can't love, like how am I possibly going to love a second kid as much as I love my first? You have it and you're like, how does my heart create more of this? Like I don't understand, but it does. And now I love them both so much. And like, it's so amazing to watch. And then you have a third one and it just does the same thing. And it's like, golly, this is just amazing. But it also, of course, adds a whole lot more, mental bandwidth and, like you said, those activities that come along. So as you're kind of coaching dads with multiple kids and you're talking to these entrepreneurs with multiple kids, how do you have those conversations with them or how do they have the conversation with you about what it's like with life and like, oh man, well, we've got golf match over here and I've got soccer practice and then we have baseball practice and I still have work on my brain, and like, how do you kind of help them fit everything in mentally to not exhaust them as much?
I don't know if I have a great answer for that. I think it's contextual. Like I think everybody, it's exploring what's important for them. Mm-hmm. And I think what's popping up for me right now are the activities, like I remember having a conversation with one guy and he said they only put their kid in one activity at a time. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was interesting because I grew up there was 3 brothers and we were all in multiple sports. And I know that's a lot of work. Yeah. And I don't want to deprive my kid of opportunities. I want to expose her to lots of different things and allow her to like find her niche of what she's great at and what she wants. But I think there is, like, if I look at some clients that do have multiple kids, I think there is especially around here where we live, there is a bit of an A-type competitive parent mentality of like, all the kids have to do all the things. And I don't know how healthy that is for the kids and how much of that is, but like how much of that is the parents' agenda versus the kids' agenda, and just really watching out for that. I talked to a guy recently and kids around the same age as Maisie, who's maybe like done swimming. She goes to gymnastics, but it's like they just like run around and
roll around on the mat.
But they had their kid in like 3 sports already, and I was like, really? Like that seems a little excessive at 2.5, 3. So I think there's just like looking at what is actually important that you feel is important for your kid, and does that actually match, or is there just like a community or like societal expectation that you're saying that they have to do all these things? So looking at like what can you reduce or eliminate, like what I think a lot of people just look at, what do we need to add and tweak. But a lot of the time when I'm working with clients in their business or personally, it's like, what can we reduce? What can we cut back? What can we eliminate? And having a bit of a conversation around forcing the priorities makes it clear that sometimes things just slip in there and we don't even know. So that's the route I would take, or like that I look at things. And I said I don't have a great answer, but that would be my answer, is like looking at how can you reduce or simplify, and really have a hard conversation around like what's actually important about having your kids in all these things. And it might actually be important, in which case it's more about how do you just manage that chaos for yourself, which becomes a different conversation.
I was going to say something like you already called yourself on it, but you said you didn't really have a good answer. And then the first thing you said was something that's super important that I want to pull apart a little bit more is like when I chat with somebody about their business and we're kind of working through analyzing why they run the business the way they do. Like, okay, what is your end goal? What is your outcome desire? What is your desired outcome for your customer, your client, for your employees, right? And we kind of work from there. Are you making decisions inside of your company that are getting you closer to that desired outcome or farther away from that desired outcome? And then we go home and we're just like, oh, I'm going to do all these things. And it's like, okay, what is your desired outcome for your kids? What is your desired outcome for you and your wife? I say you and your wife because I'm mostly talking to men. So what is your desired outcome here? All right. Well, if you don't know, if you haven't established what the desired outcome is, then of course you're going to make crazy decisions that just, well, this popped up, so I'm going to say yes to it. And it is that concept of the power of no, right, is going to get you a lot farther than saying yes to everything. Like say no to most things so you can say yes to the things that really matter. So let's sit down, figure out a plan. Like, what is it that you actually want? What is your why for your family? What is your vision? What is your 5-year, 10-year target for you and your family and your spouse? And let's make decisions based on that, not based off of, keeping up with the Joneses. All right, are we all on the, well, they've got their kids in this and I feel like my kid's going to be left out if he's not in that. Then it's okay, well, again, they may have a different why, or maybe they're not thinking about it at all. Let's be more diligent with how we're, running our family similarly to how we run our business. If we just ran our business with saying yes to everything all the time, we've done that. It flounders. It's not good, right? I've done that in a business. You have to shut it off and say, hey, what is my core focus here? What is my flywheel? How can I get this thing to keep moving forward? And it's super important. So, if you were to kind of, none of this is set up, so I don't really know. You may not have a good answer for this, or I'm guessing you're going to, but we may have to pick it apart a little bit. So let's sit down and pretend that we're creating this why for our family. How would you sit down with somebody and kind of say, hey, what is it that's important to your family? Because that's one question, but there's 47 layers we have to go down before we get there. So how would you kind of help somebody map through what their why is as a family so that they can start making better decisions together?
Yeah. I think one of the hardest questions for people to answer is like, what do you actually want? Like I ask that often and people kind of look shocked. They're like, I don't know. It's like, why is that such?
They know what they want, but
yeah. And I'm the same way. Like sometimes I've had my coach ask me that for certain situations. And in general, I'm like, I feel like I should have a better answer for this. The why, I think I probably have a lot of thoughts on this. So we'll unpack it together because I don't know if I've really put words to it. So I'm definitely a fan of Design Your Life by, I'm going to blank on the author's names, but taking a design approached way to figuring some of this stuff out. And looking back at experience, so like often when I'm working with clients, it's taking them through some form of like guided reflection or visualization that helps tap into pivotal moments, turning points, experiences that really shaped things that were important or meaningful for them. And then kind of taking a bunch of notes on that and then harvesting what's at the heart of it for them. And I think it's a process. I don't think it's something that you just sit down and be like, what's my why? And you just it pops into your head. I think it's like, it's a synthesizing of experiences. It's understanding your core values. Like, I think that's all tied together, and that work takes time. I know for me, it took quite a long time to see some of those core values take shape. But it was an exploration, looking back at threads and themes. And I think it shifts over time a little bit. Actually, I don't know if that's true. I don't know if it shifts over time, but it takes time to find it and like really hone in on what it is. So if I was to like work with a guy or like a couple and they're trying to figure that out, it would be taking them both through separate on their own, like working through some of this stuff on their own? Like, what were experiences where you felt fulfillment? What was a time that you felt the most alive? What was a time where you felt a lot of value contributing, or joy or enjoyment? Like these peak experiences and lows, like mapping those highs and lows and looking for themes of what was actually at play there that really struck a chord for you emotionally and in a purposeful sense. And usually there's a theme with those, and then you kind of pull out some of those core values and be like, how does this shape what I'm about? But if you're both kind of doing that in parallel, and then you talk to those things, you can kind of come together and be like, okay, what's our team family one? And really kind of put that together. But it takes reflection, it takes exploration, it takes poking and prodding. But that would be the route. And that's kind of what I've done with Andrea as well.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, I see you have the book Traction Over Your Shoulder, and that's one of those things that going through that as a business, right? When you're doing EOS and figuring out what your core values are, and like, okay, what are the things that we love? What are the things that mean something? What are the characteristics inside of one of your employees that just mean the world to you guys? And then you're kind of building your stuff based off of your employees and your team. And same thing with your family. And I think that this type of exercise is solid for a couple anyways, whether they're really trying to build this out or not. If you can separate yourselves, have all that stuff written down, you're going to learn so much more about your spouse, like just by, oh, wow, like you got enjoyment out of that. Like I was not expecting that. I mean, and don't say, oh, you got enjoyment out of that, right? Like let's be realistic and understand like what one person gets enjoyment out of. Like I've tried to tell people, like I don't go to the, what you call it? What is the word I'm looking for? My wife's favorite flowers, these orchids. I don't go to the orchid show because I'm stoked about the orchid show. I go to the orchid show because I know my wife would love to go to the orchid show with me, right? Would love me to go with her. So find out what makes that person excited and what brings joy to that person, and then include that into your life, right? Like, and work life together, side by side, and really understand who your partner is. There are going to be things that you do as a dad that you don't want to do. Like, I don't know very many people who are stoked about wiping a poopy butt, but we do it because we love our kids. And it's like, hey, like, I mean, if you don't, like, this is going to be a dreadful, dreadful human being for a little while, like with a nasty diaper. But learning what that person likes, what they dislike, and then you can serve in those moments and be like, provide them the things they like and take the things off their plate that they don't like. And like, what a joy it is to live life with somebody who's trying to take your pains away and add more to your joy. Like, who wouldn't want more of that? So if you were to kind of walk folks down that path and you're going through those things and they're side by side, they started creating things, how would you kind of want to put that on paper for them to be able to say, hey, this is now you've looked at this, we know what excites you, we know what fulfills you, now as a family, let's put this together so that we're on the right track, together, and maybe even including the kids. How would you kind of start to work that written down?
I think it would just be an iterative process. Like you kind of look at both together. What are those themes? Something that I've found really helpful is giving it some space. So like doing something like that, stepping away for a little bit, and then you can go back and look at it, circle words or like things that really stand out for you now that you've had a bit of space from it. I don't know if you do any art. I painted a little bit back in the day.
No. Art is not something I do. No.
So, but it's one of those things where like, I remember working on a painting and you could stare at it and be like, I should fix it. But one of the things I've heard is you just like turn it around, don't look at it for 2 weeks. And then you go back and be like, oh, it's done. Instead of like messing it up more. And I think it's one of those things where this is kind of similar, where spend a bunch of time on it, but like that time away is processing and you can see things differently. So I'd add a little bit of that in. And then, it would be drafting it out. And like, I have a bit of I don't know what I would call it. Manifesto? That sounds weird. But like, I have my own little, this is what I'm about page, like affirmations, reminders, kind of future self visioning type thing. It's a little sheet that I I wrote out, I don't know, a year ago. I look at it a couple times a week. But I think it's one of those things where you write it once and you just sit with it. And then maybe if you're doing these family meetings, like 3 months from now, you like look at it again, be like, what do we need to edit this? Does it still feel on mission and like really connected to who we are and what we're about? Or is there like little tweaks or little things you add or just massage it? So I don't think it needs to be complicated. But talking it out, I think is helpful. And I think that's why, like giving voice to it. So like when you're able to do that with somebody can talk and the other person can write and you can kind of switch back and forth. It helps with processing.
Yeah. I love it. And I think that intentionality versus complication for sure. Like if you're intentional about it, just go with it. I really appreciate that.
And that would be one thing to watch out for too, is like, I got to have it perfect.
Yeah.
And like, I have to have this thing. So it's like this big frame thing that's perfect. And I'm like, at some point you might get there and the first draft might be the one, but I think treating it like it's an iterative document takes the pressure off of like getting it right and getting stuck on it.
Yeah. And I am a firm believer in writing them down, like going and writing it down. But again, it does not have to be like ours is printed on canvas. Like we went through, I had my assistant kind of put it all together, put a design on it, put it on canvas, put it on the wall. It does not have to be that. You can frame a cocktail napkin that you did at Applebee's when you were sitting at Applebee's and talking about this as a family. It does not matter. Write it down. Go through the process. Just enjoy the conversation with your spouse. Enjoy the conversation with your kids on the development of who you guys are. Like what is it? What is it that LaBars do? Like who is a LaBar? What is it that the Barracloughs do? Like what is it that we do as a family that makes sure that we are running life in the same direction with each other? We're all in the same boat rowing together, and I appreciate that.
And I think it's a unique thing that most families don't do. Mm-hmm. And my parents never did something that specific, but I remember my dad, and he got a lot of pushback from us. I was probably like 16 or something, but he had us do a couple parts of Stephen Covey's 7 Habits, building a personal mission statement. We were on vacation somewhere and he's like, we're doing this. And it wasn't the whole thing, but it was like a part of it. And like, I still remember that. Like it was a very specific memory because it was unique and different and forced me to think. And like, I think I still remember a couple of things that I wrote. So like that to me tells me that kind of thing is important. Like that had a significant impact on me and was different than every other vacation, even though it was an amazing vacation and all the other ones were awesome too. But there was something unique about that. And I think those are the kind of things that I want to give Maisie too, is like, what are those unique things that will carry forward that pay off in dividends because you've spent a bit of time on it, that are memorable, that has you think a different way or see things a different way.
There are a lot of things that we pull from our parents, and you just started talking a little bit about some of that. Like, what are we representing? Maybe it was some vacation, we saw something. Maybe it was the way that we saw them communicate. What are some things that you saw with your parents? And you already alluded to some of the positives that you saw. What are some of the negatives that you looked at with your parents and you were like, I don't want to represent that. Like, that's something that I want to make sure that I adjust a little bit. Maybe it wasn't that was terrible, but you were just like, I think that I'd rather do it this way. And I want to, like, they taught you by doing something that you didn't want to do.
So I've had this conversation with my brothers where I'm like, did we just like it? I don't want to put my parents on a pedestal, but like, were they the perfect parents? Like, I don't have, there is like, and it sounds really, I don't know. It doesn't sound great to share that because like, that's not the experience of a lot of people, but like I look at it and there were not big holes where I'm like, I would not do things that way. Like there's so much that they've done for us in terms of how they showed up, the values that they carried through, the way they operated, that there's not a glaring thing where I'm like, that's what I would do differently.
Well, let me flip it then. Let me flip it and say, okay, what are you doing right now that you're like, man, I really wish I was doing what my parents did? I'm screwing up in this way that I really wish I saw my parents model this and I'm not modeling it. This is what I need to do to adjust it.
I don't know if I would do it differently, but it does come to mind. Like, so my mom was stay-at-home mom, and I've had conversations with my parents about that decision and how they came to that decision. And Andrew and I are very happy with our decision right now that she's in daycare, and that's the decision we've made. But I also look at how fast time goes.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
And how precious that is. I'm very, very conscious of that. And what are we missing out on because of that time and like that decision that we've made? And I mean, my dad missed out on that with us. So that same chairlift ride that we talked about earlier. Yeah. I had a chance to ask him a lot of questions and was like, got into his head a little bit. And he was like, yeah, that was tough. Like missing out on some of that time. My mom had that with us though. So like I look at that we only have limited time with our kids in a certain way. Am I giving up too much to other things? And could I be spending more time? So that is the question that's on my mind. I think I'm doing pretty good. And I'm like, I am at peace and clear on our decision right now. But that is one that has come up in the past. And to go back to the question before that, it's like, what do I think they could have done differently? I asked my dad that. I was like, what do you think he would have done differently as a dad or a parent? And he shared that he thought he could have done a better job of helping us as kids be more financially responsible. And not in like a terrible way, like the value of money, like he was very clear, and like we had lots of conversations about that growing up. But little things like probably a little more so my brothers, they were playing higher level sports. So like part-time job or summer job for them was sports. So they didn't have that same, I have to go get money to pay for something. And that was something my dad kind of looked at in retrospect and was like, would they have been better served if we had been a bit more stricter on them providing for themselves in an earlier stage that would have set them up or us up in a way to be, just think about money a little bit differently, or things like that. So it wasn't like a glaring thing, but I asked him because I was like, yeah, what would you have done differently? But that was the main thing that he shared. And I can see that a little bit with like growing up in a safe, great place, like things were provided for, like that was not an issue. And for every sense of the word, like very privileged.
Awesome.
Which, very grateful for. And I know that's not a lot of people's experience. So sometimes it feels a little vulnerable to share that, because that's not a lot of people's experience. And that is something I actually do see with within that is like how people talk about wealth when they've grown up wealthy. Like there's and like how people talk, like I think a lot of people that grow up not wealthy and struggled, I think they're more open about sharing what that was like and getting out of that and moving through that. But
if they've gotten out of it,
but that flip side of the people that were really lucky, I think there's I think shame might be too heavy of a word, but like there's something there's a little something around that, I think, for some people, and I've felt that.
Yeah, and I think so I want to encourage you on one part of that is to say, like, don't shy away from talking about that and being proud of that and excited about that. Not in the way of like, oh, look at me, I had this, but like, because you had that as a good representation, you know how to better be a representation for your kids. And if you can encourage other dads and moms to be able to hear that and say, boy, I was shown something, because just the fact that you were shown has allowed you to be where you're at, showing it differently. So if we can encourage other people to be like, look, it was because I was shown this that I got through, or I'm able to do what I'm doing now. So you can do the same thing and show your kids what it's like. You may not have been shown that, but be proud of the fact that you showing up for your family is changing your kids' lives. Because your parents showed up the way they did, it changed your life to be able to stay on a good trajectory. So encourage other parents in that and be like, look, if people are afraid to talk about money, then money problems are going to become an issue, right? If people are afraid to talk about the successes as parenting, then successful parents are going to become an issue, right? We're going to have a society where we sort of are getting to now where, oh, what do we need parents for? The government's there. Or what do we need? Oh, it's okay. We can have whatever set of whatever things we want. And it's like, no, like we need a healthy representation of what this looks like as a family. So let's be proud of the fact that the healthy representation of a mom and dad got you to the point where you're like, you know what? I can do the same thing for my kids, and then maybe even tweak a few things and make it even better. So I think that we should be encouraged by that. Not to say, pound my chest and say, look how amazing I had it, but to say, hey, like the only reason I'm here is because I saw that. So, and when people come up from a broken home, right? Like my dad came up with a dreadful experience, very horrible experience with his stepfather. And he made through by the grace of God. Like there's no reason. So, but he was able to create some small tools, and by me understanding where he came from, it's helped me become a better father. And so let's talk about it. Be excited about the times that we have solid parents that we can say, look at that, what a great example. Now, hopefully I can be an even better example, and then my kids can be an even better example, and we move that train going forward. So don't shy away from it, embrace it, be happy about it, and then use that as encouragement for other folks, not as a braggadocious thing for you, because you did nothing to have the good parents. That was them, so just be excited that you can share that with others.
Yeah. I appreciate that call out, and it's encouraging because in some ways it's like,
that's very Canadian of you though. It's like you don't want to hurt somebody, you want to be very respectful. That's
and I would say that is part of probably a value and culture of the family is modesty. Like we're very lucky. We don't need to flaunt stuff. And like there is, whether it's money or like whatever it is, modesty was valued. Yeah. So I can see some of that shining through.
Yeah. And I think that modesty should be valued in almost everything. But it doesn't prevent you from being, again, proud of the accomplishments of your parents, and hopefully proud of the accomplishments of your kids, and hopefully they're proud of your accomplishments. We don't need to be proud of our own accomplishments. I think that there is time and place for that. Don't get me wrong. I think that we need to be proud of ourselves for doing certain things, but the pride from others towards you is, I think, much more valuable than the pride of ourselves, because that's, pride is before the fall. So let's, be modest, be humble in it. And, I also, I'm going to step on your toes again, because you said, oh, we're lucky. And sometimes it's better to be lucky than good. Don't get me wrong. But, when you have the intentionality that you've already discussed having, luck tends to find you, right? So be intentional as a parent. Like don't rely on luck turning your kids into great kids. Rely on being a good parent and talking with other parents and getting wise counsel and chasing down success where you can, and then be humble about it and say, hey, I chased it down, but it wasn't me. It was a team. We did it as a family. We worked through all this stuff. So, I'm just not my kids ask me all the time, oh, what do you think that was live? I don't believe in luck at all. Like you can make your own luck. Somebody else can help you get lucky, quote unquote, but there's no such thing. This, drive, ambition, you're obviously, have good intentions in who you are and what you're chasing and what you're trying to build, and that in and of itself brings success, which is a good thing. Anyway, sorry, I'll get off my soapbox and stop stepping on toes and making you feel uncomfortable.
But I agree on the luck thing. Like it is very much you create it in a lot of ways. Yeah. You can create bad luck too. Bad decisions tend to make you feel like you're not lucky. Like, well, no, you made poor decisions. There's a big difference between being unlucky and making poor decisions. So, we've all been there, every one of us, no matter what we say. So
So as you're kind of growing your business out, you're trying to bring in more clients. What is your kind of goal growing into this? What is kind of the future of Fyfe? What is it that you're trying to build?
So somebody asked me this the other day, a friend. We went for lunch, and I think a year ago I would have said something different. But right now I'm keeping my sights a bit lower and just chip at this. And right now, that's just keep chipping away at the podcast. That's one part of it, is a way to meet people and kind of what you're doing, share insights about things that we see as valuable to entrepreneur dads. But more specifically on the coaching side, I want to have a roster of 20 clients that I work with one-on-one, and getting close, not quite there yet. Still have some spots to fill, but having a consistent way to bring in awesome guys when I do work with them. I have some women too, but mainly guys.
Yeah.
They're usually on for a year, 2 years. So there's not a lot of turnover. And just bring a little bit more stability in the marketing, have a bit more like specific channels just for bringing in awesome clients is my main focus right now. And then once that's more established, and it's getting a little bit clearer too on like specific niche and messaging of like, who is that perfect client?
Yeah.
I think other things will start to spiral out from that and like extend itself, whether it's group coaching, other forms of content, other ways of supporting. Right now it's a lot of trades business owners and dads, but there's something that calls me to support dads.
Yeah.
So it's maybe that's a book way down the road. Maybe that's the podcast is its thing. I don't know what that is, but there is a calling there for me to support. And I've that like talking back to that thing where I said my dad made us do a 7 Habits thing when I was 16 or something. The one thing I knew for sure is like, I just want to help people. Yeah. That's always been like, I'm sure everybody says that, but for me, I love being able to like give something to somebody, share an insight, coach them in a session, like a light bulb goes off. Like if I can help them and there's a ripple effect from that, like that lights me up, and that's my North Star. So how can I do that in whatever way it is? And right now that's one-on-one coaching, and it'll probably build itself from there.
Love it. Yeah, I enjoy the one-on-one coaching side personally. I think it's a lot of people are trying to push like towards group coaching and trying to push me into the group coaching thing, and I'm like, no, I love being able to just one-on-one help somebody out, watch the problems kind of become less of a problem, and
I think there's some fatigue in the group stuff too.
Yeah.
Like I've been a part of it. I know a lot of clients have said that they might be a part of it already and they're looking for one-on-one, but there's something different that you get in terms of accountability and personalized approach from one-on-one. And I enjoy that. And I've had clients say like, that's why they want to work with me. So because I enjoy it, and it's not the big scalable business model thing, but like, that's not what I'm after either. So, and I think that's part of, what does success look like for me? And like, I'm still defining what that is. And that's a huge question for a lot of my clients too. Is like, what does success actually look like? Because often we just adopt that from other people, but don't actually know it.
Yeah, no, isn't that the truth for sure? It's similar to what we talked about with what do our kids, our kids are on all these things because we adopted that from other people, and it's like, okay, what does success mean to you? Right. So like we've got a company, Active Duty Passive Income. We teach military members and veterans how to invest in real estate. And one of the things we try to walk folks through is, what is your financial freedom number? And people are like, oh, it's like $50,000 a month and it's blah, blah, blah. No. What are your monthly expenses? Let's break this down to exactly what it is. What are your monthly expenses? Like plus a little bit of a buffer. Okay, well, my monthly expenses are $4,250 a month. All right, so your financial freedom number is $4,251 a month. You just bought yourself financial freedom. If you can get yourself $4,251 a month, you now have financial freedom. So let's not look at what everybody else is saying financial freedom is. Let's not look at what is your scenario, right? And yes, you want to have more than that. You want to be able to grow and expand and get to that $50,000 a month. But let's start with what it is right now. Let's start with where we are right now and then create a vision for the future. And too many people are just like going after something that they shouldn't be going after. It doesn't make sense. You're comparing yourself to everybody else and what everybody else says, and that doesn't mean it means anything to you.
Who knows if that number is profitable anyways?
Yeah. 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 And it's one of those that you can make $50,000 a month, but if you spend 57, then it doesn't matter. Like,
Yeah.
So it's an absolute utter mess.
Yeah.
So what are the things, as we're kind of getting close to wrapping up a little bit, what are the things do you really think through? What things do you want to talk about? What sort of questions have popped up as we've been chatting that you really want to go over?
Where you see guys get stuck the most? Like if there was one kind of thing that, especially nowadays, like if there's one thing that they solved for, it kind of like it's the key habit or keystone habit that like when they solve that thing, it unlocks a chain of other things really easily. Like if there's a theme there.
Boy, that's a good question.
And I'm happy to kind of riff on it a bit too, but like that's one of those things that like I am always fascinated with, because I think it is different for people, but there is usually something that like there's a domino effect. Like what's that lead domino? Mm-hmm. Like how do we help people figure out what that lead domino is? Like I just get so curious about that.
For me, and I've brought it up a little bit before when you talked about it's not complicated, type of thing, and I mentioned intentionality. I tend to coach folks more on the family side of the house. Like you're already successful in business, but you're really lacking on the family side. And a lot of that tends to, there's a few different things. One is this stupid thing, right, that people have in front of them all the time. So that prevents folks from being engaged as a family. But it doesn't matter whether you have that thing in your hand or not if you haven't really thought about the intentionality that you're putting behind being a dad and a husband. So I think that the biggest work that we tend to have is some of the stuff you and I have already talked about and riffed on, was like, how do we create that intentionality as a dad, as a husband, that we're leading in this family the same way we lead in our business, so that we are all rowing in the same direction. And to me, kind of that unlocks the rest of it. Okay, well, if I know for sure that my goal, and this is what I tell my sons, is to raise them to be better men than me, and my goal for my daughter is to raise her to find a better man than me. Good freaking luck. No, just kidding. That's actually a low bar. But if those are my goals, how am I showing up? One of the I'm in a chat that we do daily check-ins on this app called Marco Polo. And one of the guys in there yesterday, Matt Ayer, I interviewed him on the podcast too. Anybody listening, go back and listen to that one. It's a good one. So Matt Ayer, he had put on there, we don't look like our goals, we look like our habits. So if I were to look at my goals, is that how I'm showing up in my life? So I'm going to ask the same thing of somebody's family, right? What are your goals for your family? If you don't have them, then you're just kind of going off doing whatever. But if you sit down and become intentional about how you're leading in your family, that I think is the key to unlocking like the rest of it. Like, okay, I'm making a decision to put my phone. There's another guy, Adrian Akay. Also interviewed him. He, at the end of his day, at the end of his workday, he puts his phone in a safe. It's locked up. He doesn't even look at it. And until the kids are ready for bed. And then he'll go and pull it back out. And it's like, he only does that because he's intentional. He has intentionality behind how he is raising his kids and how he's showing up for them. And you'll make better decisions when you are intentional about what you're doing as a family, which is why we have our core values on the wall, right? So I'd say that that's one of those things that really kind of narrowing in what that means to somebody, and helping them write that down is one of those keys to becoming a better husband and a better father.
Yeah. Riffing on that notion of you are your habits kind of thing. You're familiar with Conscious Leadership, the 15 Commitments of Conscious Leadership? No. Really great book. Lots of overlap it's mainly focused on business, but lots of overlap for just leadership in general and showing up on the personal side too. But one of the things I love that they share in that is looking at commitments. So what are your commitments? And a lot of people will say, oh, I'm committed to being a great dad. I'm committed to this goal in my business or hitting this target or whatever it is. And they flip it on its head. And for them, your current results are your commitments. And I find that to be like, the first time I heard it, I was like, that doesn't make sense. But if you look at your current results and that is a mirror, it shows you what you're actually committed to right now. And whether it's conscious or unconscious. And I think that it's been a really important way to really put the mirror up. It's like, I'm going to be a great present dad. But if you, like, what are your current results that you're getting? Like, it's hard to measure that, but like more measurable things. It's like, well, let's pull up your phone and how much time are you spending on your phone? Or like, how much time are you actually spending at home? But you look at the current results and that will tell you what you're actually committed to. And that can be kind of eye-opening because people start to realize, oh, I'm actually committed to spending 2 hours on my phone a day. Or I'm actually committed to staying at the office till 6:30. And that's what I'm actually committed to versus what I say I'm committed to. So just
that's a good way to stab yourself right in the chest. Woo.
Yeah, but it's like, it's a hard look that a lot of people don't want to do, but I found that to be helpful. And like along that line is, what's the price you haven't been willing to pay to get what you say you want? And that same question kind of like shines a light on the stuff that we're consciously or unconsciously avoiding that's in the way of getting what we want. So anyways, just riffed on that because it was just felt front of mind for me. And it's been a helpful question, both in business and in the personal side, to really take a close look at like what's really going on.
Yeah, so I mean, the thing that popped in my head is when people are like, oh yeah, you show me your calendar and your bank account and I'll show you what's important to you. And I think that there is some truth to that, don't get me wrong, but I can make my calendar look like whatever, but that doesn't mean that's what I'm actually doing. I can write in there that this time is for XYZ, and really it's not. I don't ever do that. Or there are times where I've got in my calendar, I've got times where it's like, this is for the kids, we play in the middle of the day. And if anybody's listened to my podcast more than once, they've probably heard me say that, is like, this is the time for them. But there are times like today where I had to cancel that. Okay, well, it's in my calendar though. So if somebody looked at it, they'd say I did it, right? But when you look at your results are your results. Like what you have is what you have. Like you can't fake or say anything about that. This is what you have. So that I really, really appreciated hearing that. I'm glad you went down that road. Your current results are your commitments. Yeah, that's awesome. I really, really like that a lot.
So I forget where we were before I took us down that little detour.
No, I was just asking if there was anything else you wanted to kind of cover, and then you asked me a question. We just kind of danced back and forth with that. So that was good.
Yeah.
And so I'm really glad I asked you that question. So.
Yeah. But the other question I had asked, I think, was like the keystone thing that makes the biggest shift.
Yeah, intentionality.
And that hits home. The other thing I've noticed just with myself and some of the other guys, and very much in line with what we just talked about, is often it's not a knowledge, people think it's a knowledge gap, but it's an execution gap. Like ChatGPT is there's all the knowledge in the world on Google, on ChatGPT, and a lot of people feel stuck, and it's not because they don't know what to do, but that's often the thing that we say. It's like, I don't know what to do, but it's more so you're just not taking action, and there's a blocker to that action. Figuring out what that thing is creates all the flywheel effects. And that's what I've been working on personally, is like, I kind of know what I should be doing in the business, like what's actually happening. My coach is helping me with that, but like, what are the actions and the execution that needs to happen? And that's what I love helping clients with too, is you kind of know what to do. You have your marching orders. Most business owners and dads kind of know what they should be doing. Yeah. But like, what's getting in the way of that actually happening? And figuring out what that thing is, because there's usually a theme. And if you can figure that thing out, then let's go.
Yeah. Usually the theme for me is the 6 inches between my ears that's preventing me from doing things most of the time. And I think that's most people, right? That's,
but there's often themes or patterns within that. And if you can figure those things out, yeah,
for sure. I love it. Well, Fyfe, it has been an absolute pleasure having a conversation with you. I really thank you so much for jumping on. Now, folks want to reach out to you. They want to hear more about your coaching. They want to understand a little bit more about what you do. What's the best way for folks to get a hold of you?
Easiest is probably just LinkedIn, Fyfe Barraclough. You can also hit me up at Instagram. I think it's just Fyfe.Barraclough. I'm not on there as much though. But those are probably the two easiest ways to kind of follow and see what's happening.
Very good. Well, we will have... go ahead.
And YouTube, probably same, Fyfe Barraclough.
Awesome. We'll have all of those links in the show notes for those following along. Go ahead and click the show notes, and you can reach out to Fyfe there. Again, Fyfe, thank you so very much for jumping on. I really appreciate it. It's been a wonderful conversation. For those of you listening, please like, subscribe, comment below. Let us know what your favorite part of the conversation was. What did you learn most? Tag somebody. Send this to somebody that you think is going to value listening to this type of conversation. And we will see everybody on the next show.
Thank you so much for listening to the BizDad Podcast. We hope you found some value in your time here with us, and we look forward to bringing you the next episode. If you've enjoyed today's show, please subscribe and share so you and your friends won't miss our upcoming episodes. Connect with us on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Rumble, where we continue these discussions and share more valuable content. Be the dad you know you need to be and run your business in a way you're proud to share with your kids. Keep crushing it.